If he drinks that, he will not walk out of this room. The thought hit Danielle before she even understood why. Her body froze for half a second. Just long enough for the moment to become dangerous. The ballroom glowed with soft gold light, laughter echoing off glass walls, executives raising their glasses in celebration, and at the center of it all, Ethan Whitmore. The CEO everyone watched, everyone waited for. His hand lifting a crystal glass slowly, casually, like this was just another night he controlled. Danielle stood near the edge of the room, a tray balanced in her hands, invisible like she always was. Except tonight, something broke that pattern. She had seen it. Not clearly, not perfectly, but enough. A man passing too close. A hand brushing the glass. Too quick to question. Too precise to ignore. Her breath caught. Shallow, sharp, her eyes locked onto the glass as it rose higher, closer to his lips. The music blurred, voices faded. Everything narrowed to one thing. Time slipping. She moved before she allowed herself to think. One step, then another, her heart pounding louder than the music, louder than the room. She should not be doing this. She knew that. This was not her place. Not her role, but neither was what she had just seen. Her fingers tightened around the tray, then released. She set it down without looking, pushing through a group of guests who barely noticed her or chose not to, until she reached him, too close now, too exposed. Ethan paused slightly, sensing movement that did not belong to the rhythm of the room. His eyes shifted down, not expecting anything, and certainly not her. Danielle did not speak. She could not hear. Not like this. Instead, she slipped a folded note into his hand. Fast, precise, like it had to exist before anyone could stop it. His fingers closed instinctively. His glass still raised in the other hand. The music swelled again. People leaned in, expecting a toast, but he did not drink. Not yet. His brow tightened slightly as he felt the paper, something about it wrong, out of place, deliberate. He lowered the glass. Just an inch, just enough, and opened the note. His eyes scanned the words. Once. Then again. Do not drink. Leave now. His grip tightened. Not on the paper, but on her wrist. Sudden, controlled, stopping her. Before she could disappear back into the crowd, Danielle froze, her pulse racing under his hand. Their eyes met, for the first time. Not as employer and employee, not as power and silence, but as something else, something urgent. His voice dropped low, almost lost under the music. What did you see? The question hung there, heavy, dangerous, and for a second, Danielle almost stepped back, almost let it go, because this was the line, the one she was not supposed to cross, but she already had. She swallowed, her voice barely steady. Someone touched your glass? The words were simple, but they changed everything. The air shifted, not visibly, but enough. Ethan's expression stilled. Completely. The room still celebrating, still unaware. And yet, something had already broken. His hand did not loosen. It stayed firm around her wrist, not forceful, but certain. Like letting go now would mean losing something he did not yet understand. Danielle felt it, the weight of his grip, the shift in the room that no one else seemed to notice. The music still played. Laughter still echoed. Glasses still raised, but between them, everything had gone quiet, completely. Ethan's eyes searched hers. Not casually, not dismissively, but with a focus that made her chest tighten. Who? He started, then stopped himself, recalibrating. Where? He corrected. His voice lower now, sharper. Where did you see it? Danielle swallowed, her eyes flicking briefly to the crowd behind him, scanning faces without moving her head. The man. She had seen him, but not clearly. Just a shape. A presence that did not belong. Near the bar, she said quietly. Her voice steady despite the tension coiling inside her. Someone passed behind you, close enough to touch the glass. Ethan's grip tightened just slightly, not enough to hurt, but enough to register, his mind moving faster now, not in panic, but in precision calculation, replacing celebration in an instant. His other hand lowered the glass fully, no hesitation, no second guessing, just a decision final. The room did not react, not yet, but something had already changed. "Stay here," he said under his breath. Not loud, not public, just for her. Danielle shook her head immediately. Small, quick, instinctive. "I cannot," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper, because staying meant being seen, and being seen meant consequences she understood too well. His eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but in recognition of something he had never had to consider: risk. Real risk. Not financial, not strategic, but personal, immediate, human. "You already stepped in," he said quietly. "You do not get to disappear now." The words landed, not as command, but as truth, and Danielle felt it. The line she had crossed. The one she could not step back over. Her fingers curled slightly, her breath unsteady for a second. Then she steadied herself, just enough. Ethan released her wrist slowly, not because he was letting go, but because he no longer needed to hold her there. She stayed, and that was enough, for now. He turned slightly, his posture shifting almost imperceptibly. The CO returning, but not the same. Not untouched. His eyes moved across the room, scanning, measuring, identifying patterns no one else was looking for, and then, something, a flicker, a man near the bar, too still, too aware. Their eyes did not meet, but the absence of it said everything. Ethan's jaw tightened, not visibly, but enough. He stepped back half a pace, placing the untouched glass on a passing tray without breaking rhythm, without drawing attention. Smooth, controlled, practiced. The room continued, oblivious, but beneath it, something had begun to fracture. Danielle felt it, even without seeing exactly what he saw. The energy had shifted, the kind of shift you feel before something happens, before something breaks. Her eyes followed his line of sight, trying to find the same detail, the same clue, but all she saw were people, smiling, talking, unaware, and that made it worse, because she knew she had been right, and now it was no longer just a feeling, it was real, and she had stepped directly into it, without a way back. The room did not slow down, but Ethan did, just enough to see what no one else was looking for: patterns, gaps. The way one man stood too still while everything around him moved. The way his eyes tracked, not the stage, not the celebration, but Ethan himself. Danielle followed his gaze, her heart tightening as she tried to make sense of it. But to her, it was still just a crowd, faces blending into one another, voices layered over music. Nothing clear, nothing solid, and yet, the feeling in her chest would not go away. It pressed harder now, heavier, because she knew whatever she had interrupted. It was not over. Not yet. Ethan shifted his weight slightly. Subtle, controlled, like everything he did. His face relaxed just enough to blend back into the event. But his eyes, they stayed sharp, calculating. "Do not look directly at him," he said quietly, barely moving his lips. Danielle froze for a second, then nodded, small, almost invisible, her gaze dropping just enough to follow his instruction. But her awareness sharpened. Every sound louder now, every movement more defined. "He is waiting for something," Ethan continued, his voice low, steady, not reacting, not leaving, just waiting. Danielle felt a chill move through her, slow, deliberate, because that meant this was not random, not an accident. This was planned. Her fingers curled slightly at her sides, grounding herself. "What do we do?" she whispered, the question escaping before she could stop it. Ethan did not answer immediately. his eyes still scanning, tracking, measuring distance, timing. Then, "We changed the outcome," he said quietly, and something in the way he said it, not dramatic, not loud, just certain, made her realize he had already decided. Across the room, the man shifted, just slightly, like a signal had passed, like something had not happened the way it was supposed to. His posture changed, not enough for others to notice, but enough for Ethan, and now enough for Danielle too. She saw it, finally. The difference between someone who belonged in the room and someone who was watching it too closely. Her breath caught, not in fear, but in clarity. She had been right, completely. Ethan stepped forward then, not toward the man, but away from the center, guiding the flow of the evening without drawing attention. A small gesture to an assistant, a subtle shift in timing, the kind of quiet authority that did not need to be announced, and slowly, almost invisibly, the focus of the room moved, the toast delayed, the rhythm disrupted, just enough. Danielle watched it happen, amazed, because nothing looked wrong, and yet everything had changed. The moment that was supposed to happen did not. The glass remained untouched, the timing broken, the plan, whatever it was, unraveling quietly. The man near the bar hesitated, just for a second, then turned, blending into the crowd again. But this time, it looked like retreat, not patience. Ethan exhaled slowly, the tension in his shoulders easing. Not completely, but enough. He did not look at Danielle right away. Not yet, because the room still needed to believe everything was normal, but she felt it. The shift, the release, like air returning after being held too long. And for a moment, she stood there, no longer invisible, not to him, not to herself, because what she had done, it mattered. It had changed something real, something that could not be undone. The tension did not disappear. It settled, like dust after something almost broke. The music continued, softer now to Danielle's ears, as if her world had shifted into a different frequency. People laughed, glasses clinked, conversations resumed, but she could not return to being part of the background. Not after this. Not after knowing what she had seen, and what she had stopped. Ethan stood still for a moment longer, not frozen, but recalibrating. His eyes moving once more across the room, slower this time, confirming, making sure the threat had dissolved, or at least retreated. And when he finally turned back toward her, the look in his eyes was no longer distant, no longer detached. It was focused, direct, and for the first time, intentional. "You saved me," he said quietly. Not loud enough for anyone else to hear. Not dramatic, just certain. Danielle's breath caught, the words landing heavier than she expected, because no one had ever said anything like that to her. Not in this room. Not in this world. She shook her head slightly. Instinctively, "I just saw something," she replied, her voice careful, controlled, like stepping on thin ice, because acknowledging it meant claiming it, and she was not used to that. Ethan studied her for a second, not judging, not dismissing, just seeing. "Most people see," he said slowly. "They just choose not to act." The sentence lingered, not as praise, but as truth, and Danielle felt something shift inside her again. Deeper this time, quieter, but stronger, before she could respond. A voice cut in from behind. "Mr. Whitmore, we are ready for the next announcement." The assistant's tone was polite, professional, unaware. Completely unaware. Ethan did not turn immediately, his attention still on Danielle, still holding the moment just a second longer than expected. Then, slowly, he nodded. Once, "Delay it," he said calmly, the authority in his voice smooth, unquestioned. 5 minutes. The assistant hesitated just briefly, then nodded, stepping away without asking why. Danielle noticed it. The way his words shifted the entire flow of the event without explanation, without resistance, power, quiet, controlled, and yet, right now it was not what defined him. Not in this moment. You should go, Danielle said softly. Not as dismissal, but as protection for him, for herself, for the fragile balance that still existed in the room. Ethan tilted his head slightly, considering. Not the words, but the intent behind them then. And you? He asked, simple, but loaded. Danielle hesitated, just a fraction too long, because the truth was, she did not know. Going back meant becoming invisible again, but staying meant being seen. And being seen came with consequences she had spent years avoiding. I will be where I am supposed to be, she answered finally. The sentence practiced, familiar, safe. Ethan's gaze did not leave her. That is exactly the problem, he said quietly. Not as criticism, but as observation. And for a moment, Danielle did not know how to respond, because he was right, and hearing it made it real. The room shifted again, subtle, but present, people adjusting, moving, the energy returning to its scripted rhythm, but beneath it, something had changed, something neither of them could undo. And as Ethan finally turned away, stepping back into the role the world expected of him, Danielle stood there, no longer just part of the room, but no longer entirely outside of it either, suspended between who she had been and who she had just proven she could be. The room returned to its rhythm, but Danielle did not. She moved back toward the service area slowly, each step measured, controlled, like she was trying to place herself back into a role that no longer fit the same way. Trays passed, voices blended. Someone laughed too loudly near the bar. Everything looked normal, but she could still feel it. That thin edge beneath the surface. The part no one else noticed. Her hands reached for another tray automatically, muscle memory taking over. But her mind stayed behind, replaying the moment, the glass, the note, his hand gripping hers. Too fast, too certain. As if he believed her before he even understood why. Danielle? A voice snapped quietly from behind. Sharp, controlled her supervisor. She turned immediately, posture straightening, expression neutral. Practiced. You left your station, the woman said. Not loud, but pointed her. Eyes scanning Danielle quickly, assessing, judging. Guests noticed. Danielle opened her mouth, then closed it again, because there was no version of the truth that would make sense here. Not in this space. Not in this hierarchy. I am sorry, she said instead. The words automatic, familiar. Safe. Her supervisor held her gaze for a second longer, then nodded once, tight. Stay where you are supposed to be, she said. The sentence cutting deeper now than it ever had before, because now, Danielle knew that place was not neutral. It was a boundary, one she had just crossed, and could not pretend she had not. She nodded, quietly, stepping back into position, but something inside her did not return. Across the room, Ethan had resumed his place, standing near the center again, speaking with investors, smiling at the right moments, controlled, composed, but his eyes, they moved differently now, sharper, searching, and every few seconds, almost unconsciously, they found her, just for a moment, then moved away again, like he was confirming something over and over. Danielle noticed it each time. A small pull in her chest, unfamiliar, unsettling, because she was not used to being seen. Not like that. Not by someone like him. The assistant returned, whispering something at his side. The schedule adjusting again, subtle, precise. And then, a shift. Security presence near the bar increased slightly. Nothing obvious, nothing disruptive, but enough to confirm that what had almost happened had not gone unnoticed by him. Even if the room still believed everything was perfect. Danielle's fingers tightened slightly around the edge of the tray, grounding herself again, because now, The danger was not just what she had seen. It was what came after, the attention, the questions, the consequences. Her name could be asked, her actions reviewed. And in a world like this, stepping out of line did not come without cost. She exhaled slowly, steadying herself, reminding herself of something simple. She had done the right thing. Even if it did not feel safe. Even if it did not feel finished. Across the room, Ethan's conversation paused, just for a second, his head turning slightly, his eyes landing on her again. Not searching this time, not questioning, just knowing, and then, almost imperceptibly, he nodded, small, deliberate, not for the room, not for anyone else, just for her. And in that moment, Danielle felt something shift again. Not the room, not the power, but herself. Because for the first time, being seen did not feel like danger. It felt like truth. Even if everything around her still told her to disappear, the room breathed again. But slower now, like something invisible had pressed pause and never fully released it. Danielle stood still behind the line she was supposed to stay within, her hands steady, her face calm. But inside, nothing was the same. The noise of the event softened in her ears, fading into something distant, almost unreal, because her attention was no longer on what she was doing. It was on what had already happened, and what might still happen next. A glass had been touched. A moment had been interrupted, but whoever had done it, they were still here, somewhere, watching, waiting. Her eyes moved carefully, not searching openly, just observing. The way she always had. The way no one ever noticed. Across the room, a group shifted. Laughter too loud. A waiter stepping slightly out of rhythm. Then correcting. Small things. Tiny. Almost nothing. But now, everything meant something. Everything carried weight. Ethan stood near the far side of the room now, slightly removed from the center. Still engaged. Still speaking. But positioned differently. Not exposed. Not predictable. Danielle noticed that too. The way he had adjusted without making it visible, without breaking the illusion. Power, but careful, now aware. And that awareness, it came from her. The thought hit quietly, not with pride, but with something deeper, something steadier, and for a moment, she allowed herself to feel it. Just for a second. Then movement, subtle, but wrong. Her eyes caught it again. Near the same area. Not the same man, but the same kind of stillness. Someone else now, or maybe the same person repositioned. She could not be sure. But the pattern. It repeated, and her chest tightened. Slow, controlled. Because this was not over. Not yet. She shifted her weight slightly, her fingers tightening around the tray, grounding herself again. Stay where you are supposed to be. The words echoed in her mind, but now, they felt different. Not like safety, but like limitation. Like a boundary that no longer protected, only prevented. Her gaze lifted, just slightly, finding Ethan again, and this time he was already looking at her. As if he felt it too, as if something in the room had shifted again. Their eyes locked, not for long, just enough, and in that brief connection, something passed. No words, no signal, just understanding. The kind that does not need explanation. Danielle's breath slowed, steadied. Her fear did not disappear, but it changed. No longer paralyzing, no longer shrinking. It became focused, sharp, intentional. The kind she had always used to survive, but now, used for something else. Across the room, the figure moved again, subtle, deliberate, blending in, but not invisible. Not to her. Not anymore. She took one small step forward, then stopped. The line still there, the rules still present, the risk still real. Everything inside her pulled in. Two directions. Stay, disappear, survive, or move, act, step into something she could not control. The pause stretched, long, quiet, heavy, and in that silence, she understood something clearly. This moment, this choice, It would define what happened next, not just for him, but for her. Her fingers loosened slightly, then tightened again, her breath steady now, not rushed, not shallow, just ready. And somewhere between fear and certainty, she began to move. The step she took was small, almost invisible, but it broke the last line she had been standing behind. Danielle moved forward, not quickly, not dramatically, just enough to shift herself out of the place she was told to stay in, and into the space where decisions mattered. Her eyes locked onto the movement again. That same stillness hiding inside motion. The same pattern repeating itself, but now, closer, clearer. The figure was no longer blending perfectly. There was tension in the shoulders, a hesitation in the timing, like something had already gone wrong. Like a plan had already started to fail, and now, it was adjusting. Her breath slowed, controlled, her mind sharp. Not panicked, not uncertain, just focused. She angled her body slightly, picking up a fresh glass from a passing tray. Not because she needed it, but because it gave her a reason to move, a reason to approach without drawing attention. Across the room, Ethan saw it, the shift in her, the intent, and something in his posture changed instantly. Not outwardly, not enough for anyone else to notice, but internally, completely. He stepped into motion as well, subtle, calculated, redirecting a conversation, repositioning himself without breaking the illusion of control. The room still believed everything was fine, but beneath it, a second layer had formed, quiet, precise, dangerous. Danielle moved closer, one step, then another, her heart steady now, not racing, because this was no longer fear. It was clarity. The figure turned slightly, just enough for her to catch the face this time, unfamiliar, but not accidental. The eyes moved quickly, scanning, then locking briefly onto Ethan's new position, calculating distance, timing again. The same pattern. Her grip tightened around the glass she carried, not for strength, but for purpose. She adjusted her pace, aligning herself with the flow of servers moving through the crowd, blending in, but not disappearing. Not anymore. Across the room, Ethan shifted again, stepping into a position where he would naturally be offered another drink. Controlled, predictable, a setup, but this time on his terms. The space tightened, not physically, but emotionally, like the air itself was holding tension, waiting. Danielle saw it unfold, the moment forming again, but different. This time, she was ready for it. The figure moved, subtle, smooth, slipping closer into position. Another tray passing, another glass within reach. The same setup repeating, but this time, not unseen, not unnoticed. Danielle stepped in, precise, deliberate, her movement intersecting with the moment just before it could complete. She adjusted the tray slightly, just enough to disrupt the alignment. The glass shifted, the timing broke, the figure hesitated, just for a fraction of a second, but that was enough. Everything stopped. Not the room, not the music, but the moment itself. It collapsed, quietly, without spectacle. The pattern broke, the opportunity gone. The figure's eyes flicked once, sharp, calculating, then away, retreating, blending back into the crowd. But this time, not in control. Not anymore. Ethan did not reach for the drink. Not this time. Not even close. He let the moment pass completely. His attention shifting. Not chasing. Not exposing. Just confirming. It was over. Danielle stood still for a second, her hands steady, her breathing calm. But inside, something released, something heavy, something that had been building since the first moment she saw it. And now, it was done. Not loudly, not dramatically, but completely, across the room. Ethan's gaze found hers again. Not searching, not questioning, just certain, and this time, there was no distance in it, no hierarchy, just recognition, clear, undeniable. She had not just warned him. She had stopped it, entirely, and for the first time, in a room where she had always been invisible. She stood there, fully seen, without needing to say a single word. The room did not realize anything had changed, but for Danielle, everything had. The weight that had been pressing against her chest since the first moment she saw that glass. It lifted slowly. Like air returning after being held too long, her fingers loosened around the tray. Not weak, just no longer bracing for impact. The danger had passed. Not loudly, not with alarms or chaos, but in the quiet way that truth sometimes moves, unseen, but absolute across the room. The man who did not belong was gone now. Not vanished, but removed from the pattern. Erased from the moment he had tried to control. And no one noticed. No one except the two people who had been inside it. Ethan did not move immediately. He remained where he was for a second longer. Confirming, scanning. Making sure nothing lingered. No second attempt. No hidden continuation. And when his shoulders finally eased, it was subtle, almost imperceptible, but real. The kind of release that only comes after something nearly goes wrong. He turned then. Not back to the guests, not to the stage, but toward her, directly, without hesitation, without disguise. Danielle felt it before she saw it. That shift, that attention, and this time, she did not look away. She met his gaze fully, steady, grounded, no longer shrinking from it. Because this was not about status anymore. Not about roles. It was about what had just happened. What they had just stopped, together. He began to move toward her. Not fast, not dramatic, just deliberate, each step closing the distance that had once felt fixed. Unchangeable. People passed between them. Conversations flowed around them, but nothing interrupted the line that now existed, clear, intentional. When he reached her, he stopped. Not too close, not distant, just present. And for a moment, neither of them spoke, because the silence now was different. It was not empty. It was full of understanding, of recognition, of something that had not been there before. "You did not hesitate," he said finally, his voice low, even, but carrying weight. Danielle's breath caught slightly, not from fear, but from the way he said it, like it mattered, like it was something worth naming. She shook her head softly. "I almost did," she admitted, the truth coming out before she could filter it. "I almost stayed where I was supposed to be." The words lingered, and something in Ethan's expression shifted, deeper, more serious. "That place," he said quietly, "almost cost me everything." The sentence did not sound dramatic, but it landed hard. Because it was real. Danielle looked at him. Really looked this time. Not as someone above her. Not as someone distant. But as someone who had been vulnerable without knowing it. And something inside her settled. Not pride. Not relief. Just clarity. "It did not," she said softly. Not correcting him. Just stating what was now true. The moment held, still grounded, and then Ethan nodded. Once, slow, deliberate, as if acknowledging something far beyond the words themselves. His hand moved slightly, not reaching for her, not crossing a line, but resting briefly against the edge of the tray she held, grounding the moment, making it real. "Thank you," he said. Simple, direct, without performance. And for a second, Danielle did not respond, because no one had ever said those words to her like that. Not here. Not in a room like this. She nodded quietly, her fingers tightening slightly again, not from fear, but from feeling something unfamiliar, something she could not fully name yet. And as he stepped back, returning slowly to the world that expected him, Danielle remained where she was, but not as she had been before. The room still moved around her, still loud, still bright, still unaware, but she was no longer invisible inside it. Not to him, and not to herself. The night did not end with applause. It softened. Gradually, like something important had already happened, and everything else was just catching up. Danielle moved back into the rhythm of the room, carrying trays, stepping between conversations, her posture the same, her uniform unchanged. But something inside her no longer fit the pattern she had been placed in. The invisible line she once stayed behind. It was still there, but it no longer held the same weight. It no longer defined her. Across the room, Ethan stood at the center again. The event continuing as if nothing had shifted. Investors listening, glasses raised, the moment rebuilt, controlled, restored, but not identical, never identical. Because now, there was awareness beneath it, a quiet vigilance that had not existed before. His eyes moved differently, not scanning for opportunity, but for truth, for detail, for the things that did not belong, and every so often without intention, without effort. They found her, not searching, just returning. Danielle felt it each time, not as pressure, not as expectation, but as something steady, something grounding. The kind of recognition that does not ask anything from you, it simply acknowledges. She stepped toward the edge of the room again, where the lights softened, where the noise faded slightly, where she could breathe without the weight of being watched by everyone else, and for the first time, she allowed herself to pause, just for a second, her hands resting lightly at her sides, her shoulders no longer tight, her breath slow, even. The moment replayed once more in her mind. The glass, the note, the choice, and then the outcome, not imagined, not hoped for, but real. Something she had changed, something that would not have happened without her. She exhaled quietly, not in relief, but in understanding. Across the room, Ethan's conversation ended, a final nod, a handshake, and then he stepped away, not toward the exit, not toward the center, but toward the quieter space near the edge. The same space she stood in, the distance between them smaller now, not because of where they stood, but because of what had passed between them. He stopped a few feet away, not interrupting, not demanding, just standing there, present, like before, but different. "This will be reviewed," he said quietly. Not as a warning, not as a threat, just fact. Danielle nodded. She had expected that. Cameras, reports, questions. All of it would come. The system would look for answers, but it would not see what she saw, not the way she saw it. "They will not find what you saw," he added, his voice softer now, almost reflective. Danielle looked at him. Steady. "I did not need them to," she replied, and the simplicity of it, the certainty, settled something in the air between them. He studied her for a second longer, then nodded, slow, deliberate, as if accepting something he could not control, something he did not need to. The room continued behind them, unchanged to everyone else, but not to them, never to them. "What you did," he began, then stopped, the words not coming easily, not because he did not have them, but because they did not fit the weight of the moment. He exhaled softly, then chose something simpler, something true. "It matters." Danielle did not answer immediately, not because she did not understand, but because she was still learning what that meant. Not for him, but for herself. Her gaze shifted slightly, not away, just forward, taking in the room one more time, and for the first time, she did not feel like she was standing outside of it. She felt present, fully, completely, not because anyone announced it, not because anything changed around her, but because something had changed within her. Quiet, steady, undeniable, like a line that had once been drawn around her, and now no longer existed. She turned slightly, ready to move again, to return, to continue, but not to disappear, never again to disappear. And as she stepped forward, the room did not notice, but she did, and that was enough.